is another edition of the Rivals.com Hoops Podcast, Florida Man and Friends. I guess I'm Florida Man, even though I'm not from Florida. I just happen to live here. And I'm joined by fellow basketball analyst, Dan McDonald. Dan, how are you, man? How are things in Atlanta?
How are you doing?
I'm okay. Let me ask you something before we get started, because I was having a conversation with a Southerner friend of mine. And you're not a Southerner, but you've lived in Atlanta long enough, right?
Yeah, I've been in Atlanta, let's call it 23 years.
Okay. But you were born in the Northeast. You were born in Buffalo. So maybe this will be an interesting case. Do you know who Dominic the Donkey is?
I do feel like I've heard that, but I couldn't tell you who or what that is, no.
It's a Christmas song that I was surprised to hear. I think maybe it's just a Northeastern thing, but it's huge. And I was talking to another Southern friend of mine, Amanda Mull, who works at The Atlantic, and she had never heard of this song. And I was a little bit surprised.
Now that you said that, I know I've heard that before, but I don't know what it is. Or
hold on, we're gonna play a clip real quick. I'm gonna do this because it is the best Christmas song. And where is it? There it is. Here we go. This, for everybody listening, is Dominic the Donkey. Oh, no, we've got an ad. Oh, boy. You've got to hear this stupid iPhone ad now for 2 minutes. I'm going to play it for you. Tell me if this rings a bell. Come on. You should be able to skip these. There it is. This is Dominic the Donkey. Does this ring any kind of bell?
Hey, jingity jing, it's Dominic the Donkey. Jingity jing, it's Dominic the Christmas Donkey.
Nothing?
Never heard this before.
Wow. I think it might be. Yeah, it might. It's either an Italian thing or it's a Northeastern thing. Anyway, we should get into basketball.
Buffalo is also more Midwest leaning than Northeast.
Yeah, since it is Western New York, but I figured that, there's still Italians in Buffalo, just not.
Oh, yeah.
There's none in Atlanta.
None.
We don't exist. We don't exist in your current.
It's now you said that, I've never really thought about it before, but yeah, I don't think there is a big population of Italians here.
Not at all, man. Well, speaking of Italians, this is a great segue. John Calipari. Paisan Calipari is having a rough week. Cam Fletcher has been suspended. I guess he doesn't come out and really say in the tweet that he suspended him. He just says he's taking time off to soul search, which feels like a nice way of saying suspended for a reaction he had on the bench against North Carolina. We can't find the video of this incident. I have not seen the incident. I've read about the incident. What's going on at Kentucky? I wrote 2 weeks ago that everything's going to be fine, and I kind of want to retract what I wrote at this point. It's a mess. What's kind of your take on the situation?
I think it's always really, really hard. And Calipari is as good as anybody doing it. But, when you bring in so many new guys and so many guys that have visions of playing at the next level, that you can keep those guys happy if you're winning, because everybody's kind of feels good about themselves. I'll get my chance. We're winning. It's all good. Betterment of the team. But when you start losing and you got top 50 freshman recruits coming in, they're off the bench and they're not playing a lot, it gets a little harder to keep those guys happy. And then you kind of see outbursts like you had with Cam Fletcher the other day, and it's tough, man. They've got to figure. I think their bigger issues they're not winning, because I think that trickles down in all these different directions with what happened on Saturday. Yeah,
so the crying was over playing time is what everything I read was. I don't know if he said that or what happened to the tantrum he threw, but everybody that's written about it has assumed it's because he didn't play enough in the game. He came out and apologized in a tweet, so I assume he's kind of on board with that. You can't really have that. There's a 3-page thread in our Kentucky board right now that wants to fire Calipari, but the fans want to fire coaches anytime things go bad. Do you think this is really a road they want to consider? Because it seems, I got to tell you, no matter how bad the season goes, it seems completely insane to me to want to run out one of the best college basketball coaches of all time after a bad season in the middle of a pandemic. It seems nuts.
Yeah, I would say I would advise Kentucky fans to, the whole phrase, the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And if you fire Calipari, which I think is absolute crazy talk, it will never happen, obviously. But who's going to take that job if he gets fired this year? So Calipari signs all these 5-star recruits and has the most guys drafted by far since he's been there, won a national championship. That's not good enough? Oh, okay. Well, go find me the guy that's going to do a ton better than that.
No, yeah, there's nobody available out there. Like you said, it is crazy talk. But I don't think it is crazy talk to consider what's wrong with them right now. And do we think that they can get this ship righted, or is this going to just be a lost season? Because it seems like one thing after another with them. Now this.
Yeah. I'll say this, though. Like, there is talent. I think we talked about before, the point guard situation is where they got to figure it out. Because I think if you get a point guard, a little stability there, and just somebody to take it over, I think all of a sudden you'll start seeing B.J. Boston make shots. And now if you've got point guard figured out and you've got B.J. Boston's struggles figured out, I think that'll take over the rest of the situation. I think everything will be fine from there. And the SEC, I think the SEC is good this year. I don't think it's great. So I think they'll have time to figure this thing out and maybe finish towards the top of the SEC. But I'd be lying if I said I'm not more concerned than I was a week or two ago when we talked about this.
I was not concerned a week or two ago because the efficiency numbers seem to be getting a little bit better. I blame most of it on the turnovers, which still remains a problem because their point guard plays a disaster. It seems on the surface like it should be easy enough to fix with the talent in place. But it's, the longer this goes on, the more it starts being, maybe not. Maybe this is a deeper problem than I thought. I mean, I don't think they're going to miss the tournament or anything crazy like that. Once they settle into SEC play, I think it'll be fine. But maybe this is one of those seasons that's just going to be not a write-off, but let's just call it a throwaway season in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, I think the toughest thing, too, when you have a team like Cal and you run your program the way he does, and it's worked for him, but the problem is you've got to always make sure you've got the point guard situation figured out. Like the last couple of years, he's had Ashton Hagans. He's had Emmanuel Quickly. He's had guys before them that were really, really good and really, really stable. But when you don't have a point guard and you're just trying to bring in 8 or 9 new guys for like a brand new team this year, like we all should be able to see this coming. This shouldn't be as surprising as it seems here today on December 21st, right?
Yeah.
But
right.
and I think that's been like I would say figuring out the point guard is the big thing right now for them. But in general, and I am as big a John Calipari fan as you can find. I love everything he stands for. I'm a big, huge fan of his. I think his one blind spot since he's been to Kentucky is kind of piecing together a roster like that all the pieces fit for the most part. And they never seem to have a shooter. Like, who's the best shooter that's been on Kentucky since he's been there? Emmanuel Quickly is pretty high up there.
Yeah.
But, like, that was 1 year last year. Who else? Like, they haven't – that's been kind of the thing with him. He hasn't been able to find a team full of guys that can consistently make shots.
Is it – he concentrates too much on the, maybe the top end talent instead of trying to recruit a specialist here because, he brings in talented kids, but you're right. Sometimes you need a specialist. Sometimes you need a guy that can catch and shoot. And maybe he doesn't do a lot of other things great, but he can knock down a shot in a big spot. And maybe that is the blind spot. That's a really, really good point.
Yeah. Like, I think but the thing he does is he gets his guys to defend. They play unselfish on offense for the most part, and they play as hard as anybody. But even it's like B.J. Boston. Like if you had talked about him 2 months ago before a season started, like, hey Dan, describe B.J. Boston to me. One of the first things you're going to say is B.J. Boston's a shot maker. B.J. Boston's not making shots there.
Yeah,
so, and I'm not blaming that on Cal or anything. I think that's more that he kind of needs a guy that's going to set him up and make it look right. But yeah, it's the craziest thing, man. They can never seem to find dudes that are going to consistently hit shots. Like Jamal Murray shot well there. He's another one, obviously.
Are Boston struggles one of the more surprising storylines as far as freshmen go this year? I figured he would be an instant. This is not what I expected.
Yeah, yes and no. Like I think if they were getting better play from Devin Askew or if Terrence Clark were to take over the point guard spot and play better or Davion Mintz, I think BJ is a guy that needs kind of a setup man here to make things work.
All right, let's move off Kentucky. We've devoted a lot of hot air to them in the last couple weeks. Maybe we should get back into recruiting a little bit. You were at some games. I've been at some games. I don't know where you want to start. I was in Bradenton, IMG, watching a bunch of preps. The field was okay. Sunrise Christian backed out at the last minute because of COVID tests or some kind of protocols, I was told, so they didn't make the trip. So that kind of sucked. But there was still some impressive play. Benny Williams is incredible. That was the first time I'd ever seen him in person. That guy does a lot of things really, really, really well. Have you had a chance to see him ever?
Yes. Sorry, I got to plug in my charger here.
Yeah, you can float around in space.
I'm settled. I'm good. No, I haven't seen Benny Williams play in a long time, actually. But I've seen highlights, and He, to me, looks everything you'd want a Syracuse 2-3 zone forward, like long,
so long.
athletic.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the way that he defends out there on the perimeter is those arms. You know, he's not the tallest kid. I mean, he is tall, but his wingspan is freakish, and he's a nightmare defensively, especially again. He fits in perfect with Syracuse in that zone. There's no doubt about it. On the offensive end, he scores, and he scored. I think he scored 23 in the first game I watched, but somehow that wasn't the most impressive thing he did. The kid is an incredible passer. Sees the floor in a way that few other players see the floor. Really, really good at setting his teammates up at the basket. It's unselfish. It's pretty, I think it's a compliment to him to be as talented he is as a scorer and still play as unselfish as he does. That IMG team's impressive. They really are.
Yeah. No, when he committed, I remember writing my column that week that by far the best commitment of the week, just because, like I said, the fit at Syracuse. And the thing with Jim Boeheim at Syracuse is he doesn't play a ton of guys. So if you're not in his 7 or maybe 8 some years, you're not playing a lot. But I think he's a guy that's going to go in there next year, and he will 100% be one of his 7 or 8 guys, and he'll make a big impact for Syracuse right away.
Who'd you see this week that you liked? If Benny's my top guy, who's your top guy from the week?
Oh, man, it's tough. So I actually went over to Milton High School on Friday night. It was the Longhorn 5-Star Challenge. Schedule got kind of tweaked as it happens in 2020 because teams had to back out. So it ended up being Newton High School here in the Atlanta area. They played against Mike Miller's son's team, Houston out of Germantown in Tennessee. They got Mason Miller and Jarrell Colbert's going to LSU. And then the late game was Milton. It was supposed to be Milton versus Lake Norman Christian with Mikey Williams. They had to back out. So they ended up playing a local school here in Denmark, which ended up being a great game. But Kanan Carlisle is somebody that I know when we do our top 25 next month, or however many we decide to rank in 2023, he's got to be in there. Like, he's always been really, really good. But so what happened was they were down 17 late in the third quarter. Bruce Thornton, the Ohio State commit, gets his eye scratched. Up until that point, I think Bruce probably had 20, 22 points, but he couldn't play after that. He couldn't see. His eye was, like, swollen shut. So Kanan, not only does he just start – I think he went on a stretch where he scored 17 out of 19 points for Milton, but lockdown on defense. The point guard for Denmark, who's having a great game, Sutton Smith, he's going to Alabama Huntsville, playing unbelievable. Once Kanan decided to defend him and lock him down, couldn't do anything. So to me, like, the competitiveness and the two-way game he had was just unbelievable. And then the game before that, Newton had a 6'5" guard, 2023 kid, Stephon Castle, who also looked like the kind of guy we probably need to consider for the rankings. I mean, legitimate 6'5" point guard, passes, shoots, defends, long, just has a really, really good feel and instinctiveness to him that it was impressive. And then Mason Miller, Creighton fans, he's going to fit in beautifully in that offense. I think he was 7 for 11 on threes. And I'm talking he had a couple that would have gone from where his dad used to shoot threes in the NBA. I mean, they were deep, and he's going to be a good one.
Speaking of dads, with NBA dads, I ran into a kid, and I don't think he's obviously not a Rivals 150 kid, but he didn't even have a profile. He's from Atlanta. He was playing for the Skill Factory. Derek McKee's son. Have you seen Chase McKee play basketball?
Yeah, Chase McKee. Yeah, so he's been kind of last year he was kind of a little bit of a late bloomer. I don't know if he's younger for his grade or whatever, but no, he's like, 6'8", 6'9", and
he handles the ball. He's long. He's 6'8", 6'9". He was bringing the ball up the court at certain points. I made him a profile. I talked to his coach after the game. They think South Carolina's close. I think he's got an offer from, like, Old Dominion as it stands, but he seems like he's probably a little better than that. He could be one that blows up late, I think. I mean, he looked incredible. I mean, I don't think he looked like a 4-star kid, but he's the kind of kid that can definitely help a number of big-time teams. He's got length. He's a great ball handler. He needs to bulk up a little bit. He's still a little skinny. He's obviously got the bloodlines. I was really impressed by him, and I was really surprised that I had not heard anything about him until that game. That Skill Factory team is interesting. They're fun to watch.
Yeah, no, so Chase, he's the kind of guy that he's the perfect example of a kid that needs a year of prep school. Because I think if he would have gone to college this year, he probably would end up redshirting. But also, when you come into a school like him and you're long and you're lanky and you're not strong enough and you just kind of get overwhelmed in practice.
Don't really have a position.
Yeah, I think coaches tend to get frustrated and impatient, and they kind of just write you off as a guy, oh, man, we missed on that one. Whereas now he's got a year to kind of work on his body, work on his game, and when he goes to college in 2021, now he's a little bit more ready to contribute. Maybe he's not a starter wherever he goes right away, but now you at least feel like he's got a chance to make some sort of impact, and hopefully he can develop into something more than that down the line. So no, he's really intriguing. And then obviously I'm always impartial to kids whose parents played in the pros, because I think that stuff matters in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I mean, Derek McKee was a first-round pick. He played at Alabama. I don't know if Alabama's involved with Chase. I don't think that he's the kind of guy that Alabama really needs to take a late flyer on. But, I mean, I can see this kid helping a South Carolina or something like that. I mean, if South Carolina does pull the trigger, like his coaches seem to think, I mean, he's the kind of guy that I think could fit in at a major program. Do I think he'll be a star? Maybe not. But, I mean, he's a good depth at that level, I think, and I was impressed by him. The other kid this weekend, outside of the stars, and we can get into guys like Efton Reed and the IMG team and the dudes on Hargrave that were all pretty good too. I saw Tefeli Leonard again. This was a kid from Linkier Prep in Branson. He went to high school in West Texas in the middle of nowhere. Nobody knew who he was. Comes to Linkier, had no offers. I saw him at the Prep Jamboree, All-American Jamboree in Orlando 2 months ago. He had no offers. He played real well there. I wrote about him. Coaches watched the video, gets a couple of offers, commits to Tulsa on the spot. Doesn't sign. I talked to the coach after the game. I mean, because he looked great again. The kid is huge. The kid is, I know he's not a Kevin Durant type player, but he's built like Kevin Durant. He's got the long body. He plays the wing. He's got the build. Obviously, he's not that type of player. Talked to the coach after, and he didn't sign with Tulsa because now he says that high majors are knocking on the door. So his mom told him not to sign. So he remains unsigned, even though he's committed to Tulsa, and there could be some movement there. I can't remember the list of schools he said it's inquired about him, but there were some high major schools. So it's going to be interesting to see if he sticks with Tulsa because the kid's getting better and better and better. And it was a case of nobody knew who he was until he got to prep school. I think it was probably a smart decision on his point not to sign, and it's nice that Tulsa let him do that, but it could end up burning him. I really liked him. I know you've probably not seen him because I don't think a lot of people have seen him. But we put him in the back of the 150. I think he's number 150 right now. That's probably where he'll stay. Maybe he'll jump up a couple spots in the new rankings. But if Tulsa ends up getting him, they're going to be getting a really good one.
Yeah, that's always interesting stories, and that's where I think the prep school thing is just great because a kid like that,
yeah,
if he's in West Texas, like those kids usually, it's either they end up a level lower than they should, or they go to junior college and they don't blow up until 2 years later. But now they only have 2 years eligibility at the Division I level. So no,
Texas Tech was one of the schools, and they're out there in West Texas that the coach said had reached out to inquire about them. They haven't offered yet, but people are knocking on the door. And it'll be interesting to see which way it goes.
I would say it's usually not a great sign if somebody commits but doesn't sign with a school early.
Yeah, well, I think it's also a sign that he was such a late bloomer. The way the coach said is, so he's got a teammate that's also going to Tulsa, Leonard, and Leonard wanted to sign, and his parents advised him not to, which I think was very good advice. Because so many major coaches are now calling the house. It's a different world for him right now. He plays on a team with St. John's commit. What's his name? Omar Stanley. He's a power forward, big bulky guy. He had a pretty nice tournament too. He's going to have to put on some more lean muscle. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's overweight, but he's a little bit bulky right now. But just a rebounding animal, not really a scorer. But I can see why St. John's took him, and I think he'll make an impact there.
That makes sense. Are you going anywhere these next couple of weeks?
There's a Pangos event in Miami that I'll go to because it's down the street. I don't really know who's going to be there, but it seems like it's an invite-only situation, so it should be pretty good. I talked to the guy that runs the thing. So that'll be exciting. Anytime I get to go see live basketball, I get excited because I don't live in Atlanta where everything is going on. I live in Miami where I can't even go inside restaurants sometimes. So, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's probably the right call. It's just frustrating sometimes. So it felt like a special occasion getting to go to IMG and see some of these preps.
I'm headed out later today to watch some games play. I will say the one downside to this year, as opposed to most years, is like you said, usually all these events will come to Atlanta, so I'll get to see kids from around the country that I don't get to see a lot of, even during high school season. But obviously people aren't traveling as much this year, so kind of feels like some people probably picked up on this, that I'm watching a lot of the same teams over and over again.
Yeah, same with
definitely. Me. So I'll be seeing teams again today, like Grayson and Wheeler and Pace Academy that I've seen already.
But I've seen West Oaks more times than they're the only team I see.
Yeah, and then next week there's a tournament over here at Wheeler. They do every year, but usually they do a really good job of they'll mix it between Atlanta area teams and other teams. Like I think a couple years ago, Isaiah Todd's team came in, and they've had teams from down your way in Miami. They bring teams in from all over, so it's usually a great event. But I was just looking at the schedule earlier this year; it's just all teams from the Atlanta area for the most part. So
Yeah, and I mean, I can relate to it. We're still on a no-fly situation over at Yahoo where I'm not allowed to fly anywhere yet until who knows when. So the events I go to have to be in driving distance. So it's been pretty frustrating where I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on the kids in Florida. And maybe in Atlanta, I drove up there. I've seen some of those kids, but I kind of feel, and I'm not intentionally ignoring the kids out west. I've watched some streams and stuff, but it's obviously just more difficult because of the circumstances. Your audio is doing the thing.
I don't even know what's going on right now.
There you go.
But like I think hopefully, the vaccine's starting to get out, and hopefully over the next few months we can get enough people with the vaccines that where by the time travel season rolls around late March through, the summer, we can get out and start seeing guys in the circuits again and get a better feel for how guys stack up nationally.
Yeah, 100%. Let's see what else we got. Did you watch the Gonzaga game? Have you watched any of them? They're incredible still.
So Saturday was the best sports day like I can remember. Got college football, you got NFL football, you got college basketball. So I had the double TV situation going on in the noontime slot. So I had the Gonzaga game on. I wasn't watching a ton of it, but I saw enough to see that Jalen Suggs, I'm getting really, really close. Is he better than Cade Cunningham?
I knew it. I think no.
Is he if we're talking NBA draft?
Man, I don't know.
If you need a guard, is Jalen Suggs the guy?
There's probably a conversation to be had, but this happens to people. You get like blinders, right? Like if you see a kid too much, and Cade has been in the spotlight for whatever, right? So it feels like we've had more time to kind of pick him apart because everybody's been watching him very closely since he was a junior in high school. And sometimes you got to step back because you can't see the forest through the trees. Jalen's a better scorer. I think Cade is a more complete player.
The thing, that's kind of what I saw on Saturday a little bit is Jalen Suggs makes some unbelievable passes too.
Oh, he's darn good. I mean, I'm not saying
he's got good size. I'm not picking one side or the other yet, but I would be willing to bet that in NBA circles with scouts and everything, that conversation is being had of which
there's no doubt. If it's not being had, they're not doing their job. You got to at least talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have a guy if a team needs a front court guy, Evan Mobley is gonna be in that conversation too because he's been great so far for USC. But it's gonna be interesting to see how that shapes up over the next few months.
Well, at the end of the day, these draft situations are one, how do you make your team better? 1A, how do you avoid a PR meltdown? So I don't know. It just seems like taking Suggs right now, and if the draft was tomorrow, we got a whole season still, so who knows? But right now, if the draft was right now and somebody picked Suggs, that's kind of putting your neck out there, right? Like everybody thinks Cade's number one. You do the safe thing. If it blows up in your face, you could say, oh, everybody thought so. You would have done the same thing. If you take Suggs and it doesn't work out, that gets people fired. And Cunningham becomes an all-star.
True. So we've said 10 times in this podcast already, I live in Atlanta. They chose Trae Young over Luka Doncic.
Oh.
Trae is awesome. There's no doubting that Trae is really, really good. But he's not Luka Doncic. And when you're an NBA GM, the little decisions, like who to sign to fill out your bench, those don't get you fired. When you pass on a potential successor to LeBron as the best player in the NBA for a guy who Trae could maybe get to the 10th best player in the NBA someday. That's not crazy. But that gap between 1 and 10 is the gap between you have a career that looks like James Harden where you never really get anywhere in the playoffs to LeBron won 4 championships, potentially 5 next year.
Speaking of James Harden, what an animal. Did you read that story about him? It came out last week where
he's not the ideal teammate is what I took from that.
The balls on that guy to just peace out and be late to film sessions because he's at strip clubs. And how about, look, I feel like everybody but the Rockets.
The flight patterns. He dictated when they flew. I mean, come on. And I think that's a perfect example of these NBA teams. They know how important stars are, like Harden and Doncic and LeBron and Durant. They know how important those guys are to winning. And it almost seems like they get paralyzed by like what are you gonna do? Tell James Harden no and he wants to leave, and then now you're not any good? Like, you gotta hope and pray that you end up with a star like LeBron, who's got his head on straight, Luka, who appears to have his head on straight, Giannis, who's got his head on straight by all accounts. Like, you gotta hope if you're an NBA team that gets a star that it's not just a star, it's the right star.
My favorite part of that Harden story was they were naming like his favorite cities to party in, and it was like Phoenix and Atlanta and LA, and nobody even mentioned Miami. I mean, geez, you can't. I mean, if Harden doesn't know where the strippers are in Miami, I can take him out. I can show him the city. This is the place.
Atlanta has a reputation of. There's a reason why professional athletes tend to
no doubt.
Off seasons in Atlanta, and then they come and live in Atlanta. Like you mentioned, Derek McKee lives in Atlanta. Like, Atlanta, I swear, we have more professional athletes retire here than
it's Black New York is what it is. It's the greatest city in the world. Like, as far as that goes, the culture and everything else, the hip hop. I mean, it's an attractive venue. I would live in Atlanta. I love Atlanta. But I'm just saying, if you're gonna go party somewhere, this is what this city is built on, right? Like, Miami is built on scam real estate, cocaine, and strippers, right? that's like what this is. So I was a little offended that my city wasn't mentioned as a party city in the Harden thing.
That's a little bit of a surprise. Is it expensive?
I mean, it's not New York, but it's
that's not even a question. That's a me and you question. That's not a James.
Yeah, that's not a James Harden question. I feel like everybody knew him and Russ on the same team would never work except for them. Like, when that happened, you want to talk about contrasting personalities. You knew that was going to explode. Why didn't they know?
James Harden couldn't make it work with Chris Paul either.
Oh, and Westbrook's just, he's not going to put up with that crap. And, as you saw in the story, he's wanting to start film sessions without him. You can tell he just hates him.
Yeah. Like, Russ has his flaws, but, like, I don't think anybody ever doubts that Russell Westbrook is 100% committed to basketball.
Yeah.
Yes. There's nothing else that dude wants to do except for to hoop. So when you have a guy who, James Harden, he's a really good hooper, and I'm sure he likes it, but we got another path in life that we'd like to go down a little bit there with him too. So
yeah, it's amazing how different. Like, the knock on Russ is that he wants to win too much and gets on people's nerves because he's a psychopath, and the knock on Harden is that he doesn't give a crap and wants to go hang out at Atlanta area strip clubs, King of Diamonds or Magic City or whatever that may be. So you put those dudes on the same team, and you had to imagine it was going to end in a fiery disaster. And here we are.
But I can't believe we've gotten this far in discussing James Harden. We haven't discussed the picture.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, is my man trying to eat his way out of town?
It doesn't seem to affect him. It's wild. Like,
no, it doesn't, because he still played well. But, like, that would be a first, like, for somebody to be like, I'm not really happy where I'm at, even though I'm making $40 million.
So I'm
gonna eat a lot. It's the holidays. Why not? Probably some adult beverages that have contributed to his weight too. I'd guess.
Well, yeah, you can't go out every night like he does and not gain weight. I used to be skinny.
And then if you just kind of skip a workout here and skip a workout there,
calories.
The older you get, I mean, I'm pretty sure James Harden's around my age, 30-ish.
Yeah.
Like when you start getting to this age, like take a week off from the gym and you feel it.
Yeah, it's time to start eating, salads, James. It's time that way. All right, what else we got, man? We got anything else on the agenda?
I got there's just a couple tournaments next couple weeks, and then all that usual holiday stuff.
What do you want for Christmas?
It's a great question.
I'm not getting it for you. I just asking.
You know what? I actually have. It's not. It won't be able to take place by Christmas, but I would love for a Super Bowl parade in Buffalo early February.
I've been winning money on them. They've been I want to talk about. Go ahead. You finish.
The Bills are a great cover team. I'm just telling everybody out there. I think I saw the line was 6 for the New England game next Monday.
Pound it, because New England's out. I should take it now. New England's out of the playoff picture now.
I just read something that Jarrett Stidham might be starting. Go ahead and get that thing. Get your bet locked in before that gets over a touchdown.
I'm going to put it in as soon as we close this chat. You know who's not a great cover team, Dan McDonald? The Kansas City Chiefs.
No, they're not.
13-1, and they never cover. And I keep betting on them.
Great teams cover.
God, I'm a masochist, I guess. I continue to bet on them, and they continue to find ways. This week they were up like 20 points in the fourth quarter, and somehow they push. but they always win. So it's like, they're looking out for number one, but they stick it to me and my friends. I went to college in Kansas, so all my friends are Chiefs fans. So I'm in this group text with them, and they're constantly convincing me to bet on the Chiefs. And I'm constantly betting on the Chiefs and constantly losing money, and I hate them. And I'm done betting on them, and I hope they lose every game. And I know my buddies are going to listen to this and get mad, but I do. I won't care if they lose every game from here on out. I'm a Bills fan.
I wouldn't be mad if they lost every game because I don't want the Bills to play them in the playoffs. So if they could tap out early, that'd be great.
I'm with you. I'm Team Bills. They cover for me. They're fun. Josh Allen is a crazy person on the field. For the rest of the season, I am a Bills fan with you, Dan McDonald.
You know what? I've had more and more friends lately kind of hopping on the bandwagon. And the highlight of my weekend, along with the Bills winning and the Jets losing out on Trevor Lawrence, the highlight of my weekend is I go to the gas station around the corner here to grab some drinks before the game the other day. And the guy sees my Bills shirt, and he gives me this look like, are you really a Bills fan or are you on the bandwagon?
Oh, no.
At first, I'm kind of offended. But then I think I'm like, well, he wouldn't be asking me this if we weren't awesome. So there's two ways to look at it. My team's awesome. I'm getting asked if I'm a bandwagon fan. Like, I can live with that.
I think the reason they're so attractive is because A, they're good. B, Josh Allen is fun to watch, whether he's good or bad. C, we talk about –
see our fans?
That's what I'm saying.
2 a.m, 20 degrees out, and there's thousands of them. And also, I don't know if anybody else knows this, there's a video of Josh Allen, short sleeves, shorts on.
Well, yeah, he's like a Wyoming freak, though.
He's a boss.
Yeah, those people are immune to the cold. The reason that the other reason the Bills are attractive, we talk about culture, and I feel like when we talk about culture in college basketball, we talk about who has it together and what feels like family. That's not the culture I'm interested in. The kind of culture I'm interested in is what feels the most like a frat house. And I feel like the Bills fandom feels like a frat house, and it makes it pretty.
The way I always describe it to my friends here in the Southeast is, it is SEC football in the North. Basically.
I want to go to a game with you. I told you this, because it just looks incredible.
It's there. It's where things happen in the fall in Buffalo.
All right, we'll put it on the schedule. Maybe what we should do is go and record a podcast in the parking lot, talk to some of these maniacs.
No question. That would be quality content.
All right, we've turned this into an NFL podcast now, so we should probably log off before we start talking about English Premier League or something, which I love.
Let's not go to that point.
All right, Dan, I appreciate you, man. And Merry Christmas to everybody listening. We'll be back. I think we'll do one next week. I don't know what we'll have to talk about, so don't put me down for that. If there's a feed next week, then there's a show. If not, we'll see you after the new year.
Thanks for having me, and Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you, man.